Imagine hearing your baby cry and running to comfort him, only to find that he has been tangled in sheets and has stopped breathing. Imagine doing everything you can to get him to a hospital and to help save him. Imagine being a mother at 21 years old and hearing that your 2.5-year-old son has died. Imagine being convicted of murdering your son and having no one believe that you're innocent. For one woman, this sounds all too familiar. Tammy Marquardt was wrongfully convicted of murdering her son in 1993. Here is her story. Tammy Marquardt was born in Toronto, Ontario. She was raised by her mother and as a teen suffered sexual abuse at the hand of her mother's boyfriend. She left home at the young age of 17 years old. In the summer of 1990, Tammy and her boyfriend Robert Nelson were expecting a child. On May 18, 1991, their child Kenneth was born. Tammy was just 19 years old. 2 months before Kenneth's second birthday, Tammy married Rick Marquardt. Rick was abusive to both Tammy and her baby. Tammy had frequent contact with Children's Aid Society, and while Kenneth was never taken from her, she willingly put him into care for 3 months in order to protect him when she felt that their living situation was unsustainable. Kenneth suffered from health issues such as asthma, pneumonia, and epilepsy. Kenneth's epilepsy caused severe and frequent seizures, which caused him to be hospitalized several times over the course of his short life. Tammy Marquardt was 21 years old when she was charged with smothering and killing her son in 1993 in Oshawa, Ontario. On the afternoon of October 9, 1993, Tammy went to check on her 2.5-year-old son, Kenneth, who she thought she heard calling her while he was napping. When she got to the bedroom, she found Kenneth tangled in sheets, gasping for breath and in distress. She tried unsuccessfully to free him before calling an ambulance. The 911 operator instructed Tammy to perform CPR, but she was unable to calm herself down enough to follow the instructions. The emergency crew took Kenneth to the hospital where he was revived, but unfortunately had suffered irreparable brain damage. 3 days later, Kenneth was taken off life support and passed away. On November 23, 1993, Tammy was charged and arrested for the second-degree murder of her son.
Tammy Marquardt was just 21. She was charged with killing her son by smothering him. When she insisted she was innocent, no one believed her. Marquardt was pregnant again when she was sentenced to life in prison.
When I got there, I was told to lie about why I was there because I was pregnant, and if I wanted the child inside of me to live, that I'd have to lie and say, well, I killed my husband. So that's what I said. Because a baby killer would basically get the living daylights beaten out of them.
But soon her case was on TV and in the newspapers, and from that day on she had to fight, push, and kick when another woman attacked.
Charles Smith was considered to be the leading expert in Canada on criminally suspicious pediatric deaths. He was the director of the Ontario Pediatric Forensic Pathology Unit at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, and frequently lectured on pediatric forensic pathology to Crown Counsel, police officers, and coroners. He was tasked with performing Kenneth's autopsy. Smith concluded that Kenneth's death was not accidental, and on November 23, 1993, Tammy was charged and arrested for the second-degree murder of her son. Tammy was tried by a judge and jury in Whitby, Ontario. Smith insisted that the cause of death was asphyxia, a condition arising when the body is deprived of oxygen, causing unconsciousness or death, and he concluded that Kenneth's death was caused by strangulation or smothering. Smith's testimony was central to the prosecution theory that Tammy had suffocated her son in a moment of frustration. In the eyes of the Crown, Tammy was a young mother with limited financial resources, parenting and coping skills, who was involved in an unstable relationship with Kenneth's stepfather. The Crown further relied on the testimony of several children's aid workers to lend circumstantial support to Smith's conclusion. Tammy testified and insisted that she was innocent. The defense argued that Kenneth had died during an epileptic seizure, but they called no medical expert of their own to support this theory. On October 24, 1995, Tammy was convicted of Kenneth's murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 10 years. Tammy appealed her conviction to the Ontario Court of Appeal. On January 22, 1998, her appeal was dismissed by unanimous court. Since Legal Aid Ontario refused to provide her with further funding, she was not able to make an application for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada.
One lawyer said, "There's absolutely nothing against you. You don't have to worry. You're going to walk out of here." And my other lawyer said, "I suggest you take the plea. This Dr. Smith, he's top-notch, and nobody's going to go against him. So he's going to nail you. He's going to be the nail in your coffin. So take the plea." I said, I can't do that. I couldn't bring myself to say I had done something that I hadn't done.
One of the contributing factors to Tammy's wrongful conviction is that of ineffective counsel. As shown in the video clip, she had one lawyer who told her that she had nothing to worry about and that there was nothing against her, she was going to walk out of there. However, her other lawyer suggested that she take the plea, because no one was going to go against the respected Dr. Smith. He was going to be the nail in her coffin. The other issue with her counsel was the fact that the defense did not call its own medical expert to testify at trial in support of their theory that Kenneth had died as a result of epileptic seizure. The overriding cause in Tammy's wrongful conviction was the evidence of Charles Smith. Smith had neither formal forensic pathology training nor board certification in that field. He was a pediatric pathologist, not a forensic pathologist. Marquardt is one of at least a dozen people prosecuted for killing children in Ontario based on what later turned out to be tainted medical evidence. Stephen Gouge, a Canadian judge, led an inquiry into what went wrong in a number of pediatric death rulings. Smith had been so highly respected that defense attorneys told their clients they couldn't win if Smith testified against them. Partly because of his reputation, partly because of what he told juries, a number of convictions probably were based in significant measure on his opinions. Quote from Gouge. Smith was trained to study disease in children. He had no training to study cases when a crime was suspected. Even worse, Smith lied. He hid evidence and used junk science. He did what it took to get a conviction. In the case of Tammy, Smith would testify that Kenneth died from asphyxia caused by smothering or strangulation. Marquardt's defense lawyers tried to argue that the toddler, who had numerous hospital visits for epilepsy, had instead died of a seizure.
Stunned Canada, particularly what had turned up about a pediatric pathologist, Dr. Charles Smith. He was called to testify at that inquiry.
"I have come to appreciate mistakes that I made, and I am sorry for them."
The investigation showed that Smith manipulated autopsy reports and distorted evidence to get convictions. Smith did not.
A major theme emerging from the Gouge inquiry was the consensus among Dr. Smith and his colleagues for a think dirty approach to death investigation. That is, to approach every sudden and unexpected child death with a high index of suspicion to uncover possible child abuse. The inquiry revealed compelling evidence of Dr. Smith's and his colleagues' reliance on social history information of those allegedly involved in the death to inform their conclusions. An example is within Kenneth's autopsy report. Dr. Smith recorded, "Kenneth's mother's husband, who was not Kenneth's father, was not present when Kenneth's body was found because he was with his girlfriend who was giving birth to his baby." The targets of this think dirty conspiracy were those from marginalized socioeconomic backgrounds, including the poor, Aboriginals, immigrants, those with a prior criminal record, and particularly single mothers receiving social assistance. Tammy was very young when she had Kenneth. She was only 19, and she had limited financial resources. Dr. Smith's bias towards female care providers proved that Tammy was the perfect criteria to fit the think dirty approach. By thinking dirty, pathologists and prosecutors often ignored other reasons the children may have died. With the example of Kenneth, Dr. Smith ignored the fact that he could have died from an epileptic seizure.
The Gouge Commission found the actual words, "think dirty," in instructions from Ontario's chief coroner in 1995 to coroners, pathologists, and police chiefs.
Think dirty reflects a cast of mind that was prevalent often with the child care community in the 1990s. That is, injuries observed were deliberately inflicted. That's the presumption to be disproved.
At the time, there was reason to fear that some cases of children being murdered were being missed, and sometimes classified instead as sudden infant death syndrome. That's a category for deaths when the cause can't otherwise be determined. But by thinking dirty, pathologists and prosecutors ended up ignoring other reasons the children may have died.
Another factor leading to Tammy's wrongful conviction is her gender and the financial status. Since she was a woman and a single mother, she was already the target of Dr. Smith's think dirty approach. Since she was very young when she had Kenneth, she had limited financial resources. She was impoverished and living off welfare.
Lockyer says there was something else that was common among the people he's helped exonerate.
Most of the victims of Smith, if not all of them, were easy marks, and Tammy was a good example of an easy mark. She was a young, single mother. She was impoverished. She was on welfare.
In his autopsy report, Smith speculated that Marquardt had killed her child because she'd acted out of anger over the chaos in her life. She was a teen mother with a history of substance abuse and troubled relationships with men. That day, her boyfriend had gone to be with a woman who was giving birth to his child. But the pathologist's emphasis on this, which became the prosecution's theory, was pure speculation, not science.
So just going into the...
The last two factors leading to Tammy's wrongful conviction are professional misconduct and exclusion of evidence by expert testimony. Exclusion of evidence as expert testimonies are sometimes conducted by fraudulent or deceitful experts, such as Dr. Smith. He was known for losing and/or withholding evidence in his cases. Expert testimony is testimony about a scientific, technical, or professional issue given by a person qualified to testify because of familiarity with the subject or special training in the field. These criteria are highly subjective, and trial judges have wide discretion in qualifying experts and admitting their testimony. Their role is to be an educator to assist the court, as opposed to being an advocate for one side or the other, but the forensic scientist sometimes takes on the role of victim advocate, which conflicts with the role of expert witness. When a case lacks factual evidence, an expert testimony is considered fact, and this leads to wrongful convictions. Charles Smith viewed his main role as expert witness to support the Crown and would do anything to make the case look good.
For why each of these children died.
James Lockyer is the Toronto lawyer who represents Tammy Marquardt and several others whose convictions have been overturned.
I mean, it wasn't complicated to work out how these children died. They had pre-existing conditions, whether it was an epileptic condition or some other kind of condition.
Lockyer says Tammy Marquardt's son, Kenneth, died from an epileptic seizure. Doctors had put the boy on 2 drugs to control epilepsy. But at trial, pathologist Charles Smith and other prosecution medical experts minimized his epilepsy, even though over the 2 years of his life, the boy's medical records showed many seizures and multiple trips to the emergency room. Prosecutors said these were just the common seizures among young children that result from a high fever. And Dr. Smith claimed, falsely as it turned out, that he could tell the boy had been smothered, probably with a pillow.
Pardon?
I'm wondering, as you move on with your life, would you like the authorities to look more at Charles Smith? Do you think enough has been done in dealing with just what he wrought?
I don't think anything could vindicate. He has to live in his own personal hell. So I don't think there's anything really that could, that I or anyone else could do.
What would you say to him if you could talk to him, tell him something? What would you say to him after what he's done to your life?
Well, I can't say this on television. But yes, I would ask him what he thought he was doing, who he thought he was, and why. Why did you do it? What possessed you to play God? You know.
You mentioned, or in the press release, it mentioned that you felt like your son was breathing. Will all explain that for you?
Well, all these years, I don't feel that Kenneth has been able to rest in peace because of everything that's been going on. Like, now he's finally able to be at rest.
Tammy, tell us what Charles Smith did, what this whole process is.
Took away a big portion of my life, took away my life with my children, took away my ability to grieve, my freedom, my mentality. It really took a big chunk of my soul.
How do you deal with that day to day now?
Well, with the love of my friends and family.
I see your tattoo says freedom. Does it mean more today than it did when you first got it?
Definitely. Now it's true freedom.
When you were first charged all those years ago, did you ever think it would take this long for you to see this day?
Honestly, I never thought I would see this day. I thought there is no justice. They're going to believe him, and you know, they're not going to believe somebody like me. Who am I to this world? And when someone finally did take interest and start listening, I was in shock. I couldn't believe, hey, somebody's actually listening to me, finally. And now it's like, there are nice people in this world. They just seem very few and far between.